These 3 tasks have been sitting on my to-do list for way too long at this point. I have a freelance client that I've been working with for over 5 years, and he recently came back to me for a few enhancements and fixes on his website. The code is a bit old. The website was built 5 years ago. It's using the Genesis framework, which is a WordPress starter theme framework. I haven't looked at the code in a while. I've been deep in the full site editing and the new way of WordPress, especially ever since building Rockbase. That's pretty much all I've worked with for the past 2 years. So today, I'm gonna hop back into old school WordPress, make these changes, and just get this done. All right, my first step is to go through the tasks and organize them by, I'm gonna organize them by complexity. Like I said, it's old code that I haven't jumped into in a while. And I think the easiest way will be to start with something easy. Let's get a quick win. So as you can see, these tasks are overdue by a day, 2 days, and a day. All right, so podcast transcript and site search. That one, basically the podcast transcript, from what I remember, is using ACF, and the way that WordPress search works, it doesn't actually look in the ACF field, so I need to find a way to connect those. Kind of complex. I'm gonna actually just move it to the bottom. Remove upcoming events. I don't even remember how I did the events, but that shouldn't be, it's usually easy to remove something. I'll leave that here. Change Google Podcasts to YouTube Podcasts. Okay, I know Google Podcasts became YouTube Podcasts or something recently, and the client wants to switch from, there's a few different places where we are asking people to subscribe to Google Podcasts. We need to switch those logos, switch the text to, say, YouTube Podcast. That one shouldn't be too bad either. So remove upcoming events and then switch out the logos, and then we'll deal with this tricky search one. All in, I thought that this was going to take me a couple of hours. I think that's why I've been putting it off, is I just didn't want to sit in this older code for such a long time. And yeah, I kept putting it off, but I'm just going to dive in and see how quickly I can get it done, kind of make a game of it. That's usually a trick that I like to use when I have those tasks that I just can't motivate myself to do. So gonna jump in. This is gonna be fun. This first task, removing upcoming events, let's move that into in progress and let's dive in. So after looking at this, I can see that this is the area I need to remove, this upcoming community events. Looks like it's just pulling in events from somewhere. Let's go to edit page and see what's going on. Oh geez, we got short codes all over the place. It looks like I created a custom short code. Vaguely remember this. Oh wow, okay. All right, we have a short codes file. Short code calendar events is right here. So the short code is just pulling in some data from ACF. What I'm gonna do actually is I'm gonna copy this. So I'm just gonna copy this into Notion in this task, just in case something goes horribly wrong, which it shouldn't, but you never know, right? Better safe than sorry. So we have this short code selected, we'll just delete it. Let's view the page. Looks good to me. Upcoming events is removed. Let's open up Notion. Can check it off. So we are making good progress. 1 out of 3. So that first task was done. That was way easier than I ever would have thought. I did not think it was that simple. While it wasn't my best coding from 5 years ago, it was pretty easy to remove those upcoming events. So let's move on to that next one. The next one is, let's see, change Google Podcast to YouTube Podcast. This client usually gives me really good notes. Another small addition. The client has even identified exactly where they are. The Google Podcast buttons currently appear on the homepage footer, when not logged in, episode library, and topic guides template. Let's take a look to see what he means. Right here. Okay, so this says Google Podcast. We need to change this to, say, YouTube Podcast. In the footer, same exact thing. We need to change it here. I'm hoping I built this in a way that this is using the same component everywhere, but I don't know. It was built a while ago. All right, so this is the front end of the site. Right here, right on the home page, Google Podcasts right here. I still can't believe how good this site looks 5 years later. Shout out to Rafal, Tamal, and 8pixel Studio. They do ridiculous work. This is a site that was designed 5 years ago. It looks like it was built yesterday. It still looks that good. Aged well. All right, so we've identified all the areas that I need to remove it. Now I need to figure out how that is being loaded. I'm honestly not sure what I did to load in that the Google Podcast thing. I'm gonna search through the code and see if I can figure it out. Let's see. All right, include nothing here. Partials? Well, here is definitely a place that I need to change it. Icon Google right here. So on that front page, okay. Nope, that's phone image. Going through this code is, oh wow, a lesson in being humble. This was written so long ago and it feels weird to be going through it. The code works great. This website is still running. It is still bringing in revenue for the client, and there's nothing wrong with the code that's written. Definitely just different ways that I would have approached some of these challenges. Not there. Templates? No. All right, let's stop messing around and just search Google. Archive Podcasts. Right here, we will have to switch it. I'll just search for Google Podcasts so that we can change the name. I definitely could have built this in a better way where all of this data was stored in one place. You can already see that there's a few different areas. I'll have to edit this. Yeah, it looks like I'm using a class. So my guess is somewhere in the CSS. Okay, so this is using SCSS. I found where this is calling to a specific image. I'm actually just searching for the YouTube podcast icon, and the icon is just the YouTube logo. Who knew? Not me. Just got a text from Kelly just asking if I want some more matcha. Of course I want more matcha. I found the logo. I'm going to add it into the theme. Icon -YouTube.png. All right, I'm gonna use the method I used here and just search Google. You have it here. One of the challenges is gonna be that all of the fields are named Google. I'm gonna leave those. The only person that's gonna see this is me, and Google is YouTube. I don't think that'll cause any issues. Google Podcasts. We're gonna change this to YouTube. Okay, one down. Actually, I'm gonna search for Google Podcasts. Switch this one, last one. Save that file, save this file. YouTube Podcast. Brilliant. Looks good to me. In the header, okay, YouTube Podcast. Okay, Google Podcasts right here. Looks good to me. I think we're good on this one. Let's hop into Notion. Mark it done. I never even moved it into in progress. We are just moving 2 out of 3. This last one, the podcast transcript in site search. Let's move that to in progress. I think this one's going to take a bit longer. One of the reasons that's important, I have a feeling I'll get interrupted. It's starting to approach lunchtime. I want to eat lunch with my kids, so I might have to stop. I want to know when I get back to my computer, I can open up Notion, look at my day, and see that the thing that was in progress when I left was this podcast transcript in the site search, and get right back in and rolling. Starting on this podcast transcript in site search, so I'm gonna do some Google searching. Let's scroll. It looks like I already. All right, we found some plugin suggestion. This isn't as easy as I thought. It looks like there's a plugin option. I don't always love using a plugin for this. Got a lot of installations, really good ratings. This might be the answer. Sometimes that is the answer, right? It's got 5 stars. Let's actually just give this a try. Actually, one thing I wanted to try before I install the plugin, like all right, so the example he gave was if in the transcript he mentioned that Oprah Winfrey was mentioned, if I come up here to the site search and I search, it says no content matched your criteria. That's because the term Oprah Winfrey is only in that ACF field, and I need to somehow connect that to the search. Let's take a look. We're gonna try this plugin. All right, I just installed the ACF Better Search. Let's configure it. So it makes sense. Save changes. I'm guessing I need to adjust it. I could just read the documentation, but that's not fun. I think I just go into ACF. Let's see where this is. I go into ACF and I look at podcast transcript. Maybe it's in here? No. Actually, it could just be this. Ha! I wonder if it was just that and I don't even need this plugin. Let's deactivate it. So it's deactivated. I still have that field showing up in the REST API. Let's do the search again. Oh, okay. So the plugin was doing it. Maybe it was to just automatically work. Whoa, that's too easy. All right, that works for me. That seems super clean. The plugin has amazing reviews. I don't see any issues here. Our search is now working. If I search Oprah, we now get this episode that shows up, and that text is in the transcript. Let's look at Notion and move it to complete. We did it. We did it. Those 3 tasks that have been sitting on my to-do list, they're now overdue. I had these just sitting there, and I didn't want to hop into that old code. That was hard. It's really tough to look at something old that you built. I see so many things that I want to fix, but if I'm being honest, the project was to solve these very specific things. The website is still serving the client. There is no need to completely redo it. Everything is working just fine on the front end. This just goes to show that when you're feeling stuck and you have a task that feels insurmountable, sometimes you just have to start. Open up your code editor, get everything going, and break it down into small chunks. I actually had all of these as one task, and I think that at first was overwhelming. I broke them down into smaller pieces and then prioritized, started with a really small win, moved on to something slightly more complex, and then finally the hardest one, which actually was the easiest one. It was just a plugin that solved it, right? You can become super productive like me. Which is only the case because I procrastinated for a very long time first. But here we are. Get coding.